The father's justice. I almost dropped my coffee the moment I saw her. At first, my brain refused to process it, like reality itself had glitched, like I was looking at the wrong scene, in the wrong life. Because standing there, just beyond the dusty glass of my construction trailer window, was Lisa, my daughter-in-law, 8 months pregnant, wearing a stained apron, taking orders from my crew, like she was just another tired worker trying to survive the day. The same woman my son had sworn disappeared 3 months ago. Ran off with another man, he said. Cleaned out the account, left without a word. That's what we all believed. That's what I believed. But the woman I was staring at now wasn't someone who had run away. She looked like someone who had been pushed out. Hard. Her movements were slow, careful, like every step hurt. One hand gripping the edge of the food truck window, the other resting protectively on her stomach. Her face, pale, drawn. The kind of pale you don't get from bad lighting, but from exhaustion, from fear, from not eating enough for far too long. The guys in my crew, they were being respectful. Of course they were. I raised them that way. But even from a distance, I could see it. The way she avoided eye contact, the way her shoulders curled inward, like she was trying to disappear, like she didn't want to be seen, especially not by me. And that's when it hit me. This wasn't a coincidence. This wasn't bad luck. This was something else, something wrong, something hidden. Because if Lisa had really abandoned my son, if she had really run off with another man, then why was she here? Working for tips in the Texas heat, while carrying my grandchild. Why did she look like she hadn't slept in days? Why did she look afraid? Not guilty. Afraid. I didn't even realize I had stood up. My chair scraped against the trailer floor, loud enough to break the silence inside. But I barely heard it. All I could hear was that question, echoing in my head, over and over again. What the hell really happened? Because whatever story my son told me, whatever version of the truth we all accepted, it didn't match what I was seeing now. Not even close. And deep down, in a place I hadn't listened to in years, something cold and heavy began to settle in my chest. The kind of feeling you get right before you realize you've been lied to by your own blood. We sat across from each other in a quiet booth, the kind of place where nobody asks questions. Lisa kept her eyes down at first, fingers trembling around a cup of coffee she hadn't touched. For a moment, she said nothing. And then, her voice broke. He didn't just ask me to leave. A pause. He made me leave. I felt something tighten in my chest. What do you mean, made you? She swallowed hard, like the words themselves hurt to bring back. Benjamin brought her home. Another pause. Heavier this time. Patricia. The name landed like a hammer. I remembered her, too well. Sharp, calculated, the kind of person who smiled while stealing from you. I had fired her myself, caught her falsifying expense reports without a hint of remorse. And now, she was back. In my son's house. In Lisa's house. He said she was helping with business, Lisa continued, her voice barely above a whisper. But they didn't even try to hide it. I leaned forward, every muscle in my body tense. They wanted me to see. Those words, they didn't sound like anger. They sounded like something worse. Like humiliation, carefully designed. Patricia started wearing my clothes. Lisa's hands clenched around the cup. My jewelry, cooking in my kitchen, like I didn't exist. I couldn't speak. I couldn't even breathe properly. And they would sit there, she continued, her voice shaking now, at the table, talking about their future. Right in front of me. A long silence filled the space between us. Not the peaceful kind, the kind that suffocates you, like I was furniture. That was the moment something inside me snapped, quietly, but completely. Because this wasn't just betrayal. This was cruelty. Deliberate, calculated cruelty. Why didn't you call me? I asked, my voice lower than I expected. Why didn't you tell me any of this? She looked up for the first time, and what I saw in her eyes wasn't just pain, it was fear. He said if I caused trouble, another pause, he'd have me declared mentally unfit. My stomach dropped. Said he'd take the baby. Her voice cracked, barely holding together. And I'd never see him again. There it was. Not just betrayal, control, manipulation. A threat designed to destroy her completely. He has lawyers, she whispered. Good ones. I have nothing. I sat back slowly, trying to process what I was hearing. The son I raised, the boy I taught about respect, about loyalty, about protecting family, had turned into something I didn't recognize, something colder, something dangerous. And Patricia, she wasn't just part of it. She was amplifying it, feeding it, shaping it. This wasn't a mistake. This wasn't a moment of weakness. This was a system, a plan. And Lisa, 8 months pregnant, alone, had been forced out of her own life, like she never mattered at all. In that moment, I wasn't just angry. I was certain. Whatever story I had been told before was a lie. And the truth, it was far worse than I ever imagined. She didn't leave. That was the first truth that settled between us. Heavy, undeniable. She had nowhere else to go, Lisa whispered, her voice barely holding together. I watched her fingers press gently against her stomach. Instinct, protection, fear, all at once. He planned everything. A slow breath, every step, every word. I felt my jaw tighten. What do you mean, planned? She looked up again, and this time, there was no hesitation. Benjamin told everyone I was unstable. A pause. Said I was having emotional episodes, paranoia, mood swings. The kind of lies that sound believable, especially when repeated enough. He called my parents before I could. Her voice cracked. Told them I ran off with another man. I could almost see it. The phone calls, the carefully chosen words, the way he built the story, piece by piece, until it became truth in everyone else's eyes. They won't even answer me anymore. That sentence didn't need volume. It carried its own weight. And when I tried to fight back, she continued, her breath uneven now. He smiled. Not anger, not shouting. A smile. Said if I caused trouble, he'd have me declared mentally unfit. I felt something cold run through my spine. He said I'd lose the baby. Silence. The kind that presses against your ears. And no one would believe me. That was the moment I understood. This wasn't just betrayal. This was control. Complete, calculated. The kind designed to erase someone without leaving a trace. So I left. Not because she wanted to, but because she had been cornered, pushed, slowly, until there was only one direction left. Out. Where have you been living? I asked, already knowing I wouldn't like the answer. Her eyes dropped again. In my car, mostly. The words came out quietly, almost ashamed. Sometimes a motel, when I can afford it. 8 months pregnant. Sleeping in a car. In Texas heat. Trying to survive one day at a time. Maria lets me work for cash. She gave a faint, broken smile. She doesn't ask questions. Of course she didn't. People who survive like that learn not to ask. It's not much, but it keeps me fed. Fed. Not safe. Not stable. Just fed. I leaned back slowly, trying to hold on to something solid, because everything I thought I knew about my family was slipping, piece by piece. And the baby? I asked, my voice quieter now. Her hand tightened instinctively. I do what I can. Another pause. I just need him to be okay. That was it. No complaints. No anger. Just a mother trying to protect a child, while everything else around her collapsed. And suddenly, the image from the food truck hit me again. The pale face, the shaking hands, the way she tried to disappear. It wasn't shame. It wasn't guilt. It was survival. Because when the world believes a lie about you, when everyone you trust turns away, when the person who should protect you becomes the one destroying you, you don't fight anymore. You endure. And Lisa, she had been enduring, alone, for far too long. For a moment, I thought the worst part was over. That the betrayal, the cruelty, was the whole story. I was wrong. There's something else, Lisa said quietly. Her voice dropped lower, like even the walls shouldn't hear it. Something about your company. I frowned, instinctively. What about it? She hesitated, not because she didn't know, but because she knew exactly how bad it sounded. I used to handle bookkeeping, small businesses, before I married Benjamin. A pause. I know what clean numbers look like. Another pause, heavier this time. And I know what dirty ones try to hide. Something shifted in the air between us. The conversation wasn't just emotional anymore. It was turning, precise, dangerous. Victor, she whispered. Someone's been stealing from Hayes Construction. My fingers tightened around the coffee cup. How much? Her eyes met mine, steady now. At least 750,000. The number didn't just land. It echoed. Because that wasn't random. That wasn't a mistake. That was a system. How? I asked, my voice sharper than before. Shell companies, she said immediately. Fake vendors, inflated material costs. Each word, clean, calculated. No real deliveries, no physical inventory, just paper trails. I could see it forming in my head. Invoices that looked legitimate, payments that matched contracts. Money moving in circles, until it disappeared. Who approved the payments? She didn't answer right away. She didn't have to. The silence said it for her. Benjamin. Of course it was Benjamin. Every time I had those dizzy spells, every time my vision blurred, every time I couldn't focus long enough to review documents, he stepped in. Don't worry, Dad. I've got it. I remembered those words now, clearer than ever. Not concerned. Opportunity. They always happen before big decisions, I muttered. Lisa nodded slowly. Large transfers, contract approvals, vendor selections. Everything lined up. Too perfectly. Like someone had timed it, engineered it. And suddenly, the room felt smaller, tighter. Because this wasn't just theft anymore. This was coordination, planning, control, money disappearing, authority shifting, power moving quietly from one hand to another, and I had been standing right in the middle of it, blind, or worse, helped into blindness. I leaned back slowly, trying to steady the storm building in my chest, because if what Lisa was saying was true, then this wasn't just about a broken marriage or a stolen company. This was something deeper, something colder, a pattern, a setup. And I had a feeling, a very bad feeling, that the missing money was only the beginning. The numbers didn't just explain the theft. They pointed somewhere darker, because suddenly, everything else started to make sense. All at once. The dizziness, the nausea, the way my hands would shake right before signing major contracts, the way my vision blurred when decisions mattered most. It wasn't random. It was timed. Lisa, I said slowly, I need you to think carefully. She looked at me, tense, already sensing where this was going. Have you ever noticed anything strange about my coffee? A pause. Or the tea Benjamin makes me at night. Anything unusual? Her face went still, then pale. Oh my God. The words slipped out before she could stop them. You think? Another pause, sharper. You think he's poisoning you? I didn't answer right away, because saying it out loud made it real. I don't know what to think, I admitted. But I've been getting worse, every week. And it always happens, right before he steps in to handle business. That was no longer a coincidence. That was a pattern. Lisa covered her mouth, her breathing quickening. "Victor," she whispered. The morning I left, I leaned forward, every nerve in my body on edge. I heard them talking, in the kitchen. The room seemed to close in. What did they say? Her voice dropped, barely audible now. Patricia mentioned a powder. A pause. Said it was working faster than expected. My heart slammed against my chest. Faster. Not safer. Not controlled. Faster. I felt the pieces locking into place, one after another. The late-night tea. The bitter taste I had ignored. The way Benjamin always watched me drink. Not casually. Carefully. Measuring. Waiting. And suddenly, I wasn't just tired anymore. I was a target. A plan in progress. "This isn't just about money," I said quietly. Lisa shook her head, tears forming again. "No. They wanted everything. Not just control of the company. Not just the accounts. Everything. Including the one thing standing in their way. Me." I leaned back. Slowly. Trying to steady my breathing, because the realization hit harder than anything before. My own son was trying to kill me, not in anger, not in desperation, but patiently, carefully, like a businessman executing a deal. "Arsenic," I muttered, almost to myself. Lisa looked at me, confused. "It's slow, hard to detect," I continued. "Mimics natural illness, fatigue, aging. Perfect. Too perfect. A method designed not just to kill, but to erase suspicion." And as the truth settled in, something inside me changed. The shock, the disbelief, it burned away, leaving something colder, clearer, because this wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a mistake. This was betrayal, at the deepest level possible. Blood turning against blood. I looked at Lisa, really looked at her. At the fear, the exhaustion, the quiet strength it took just to survive this long. "They think they're winning," I said, my voice steady now. She didn't answer, but her eyes said everything. "They think I'm getting weaker." Another pause. "They think I won't see it coming." The silence stretched, heavy. And then, slowly, I made a decision. The kind you don't come back from. If they want to play this game. My voice dropped, sharper, controlled. Then we're going to finish it. Because for the first time since this began, I wasn't reacting anymore. I was planning, and somewhere, deep beneath the anger, a single thought took hold. Cold, precise. If my son wanted me dead, then he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't call the police. Not yet. Because when something is this calculated, this deliberate, you don't react. You prepare. "Finish your coffee," I said quietly, already reaching for my wallet. Lisa looked at me, confused. "What are we going to do?" I stood up, slow, controlled. "We're going to make sure you're safe first. No hesitation, no second thoughts. Because whatever came next, she couldn't be exposed. Not like this. Not anymore." The drive across town felt shorter than it should have. Silence filled the car, but it wasn't empty. It was focused, tight, like the calm before something breaks. I checked her into a small hotel, nothing fancy, but clean, secure. 2 weeks, paid in cash, no paperwork questions. A place where she could breathe, for the first time in months. "Stay here," I told her, meeting her eyes. "Don't go anywhere unless you absolutely have to." She nodded, slowly. Still unsure, but trusting. "And if anything happens." I pulled a card from my pocket, wrote a number on the back. "You call him immediately." She looked down at the name, then back at me. "Who is he?" "Someone who knows how to find the truth." That was all she needed to know. Because now, it was my turn. I stepped outside, the air heavier than before, and made the call. It rang once, twice. Then a familiar voice answered, calm, steady. Yeah? L. A pause, recognition settling in. Victor? I need a favor. Not small. Not simple. A big one. He didn't ask questions right away. That's why I trusted him. I'm listening. I told him everything. Lisa, the money, the symptoms, the suspicion. The silence on the other end stretched, not empty. Focused, processing. You want me to look into your own son, he said finally. I closed my eyes for a second. Just one. I want the truth. Another pause. Longer this time. If you're right, Al said quietly, you're lucky to still be alive. I know. And I did. More than ever. Start with surveillance, I continued. Full coverage, movements, contacts, transactions. No mistakes. You'll have everything, he replied, without hesitation. That was it. No doubt, no judgment. Just action. I hung up and stood there for a moment, letting the weight settle. Because this wasn't business anymore. This wasn't a strategy. This was war. Quiet, precise, and personal. Back at the house, everything looked the same. The same walls, the same furniture, the same life I thought I knew. But now, every detail felt different. Every routine, every interaction, a potential threat. That night, Benjamin showed up like always. Concerned, attentive, carrying a cup of tea, playing his role perfectly. Rough day, Dad? He asked, watching me closely. I nodded, taking the cup. But this time, I wasn't the one being watched. I took a slow sip, careful, measured, and smiled, just slightly, because for the first time, I wasn't one step behind anymore. I was already ahead, and he had no idea. The next morning, everything moved faster. Not chaotic. Precise. Like pieces finally falling into place. I sat in the clinic, sleeve rolled up, watching the needle slide into my arm. Cold, clinical, routine. But this wasn't routine. This was confirmation. Dr. Johnson didn't ask many questions at first. Just ran the tests. Quietly, professionally. Hours passed. Slow. Heavy. Then my phone rang. Her voice, different this time. Tighter. Controlled. Victor, I need you to come in immediately. That was enough. No explanation needed. I was already on my feet. When I walked into her office, she didn't sit down. Didn't soften it. Your blood shows elevated levels of heavy metals. A pause. Specifically, arsenic. 1. There it was. Not suspicion. Not theory. Fact. This isn't accidental exposure, she continued. This is intentional. Intentional. The word echoed, louder than anything else. I nodded slowly, because deep down, I already knew, but hearing it changed everything. I stepped outside, the air sharper now, and made the call. L. I got confirmation. A brief silence. Then, arsenic? Yes. Jesus. No shock. Just certainty. Where is he now? I asked. Already on him? Al replied. Your boy just walked into Dallas Medical Supply. My grip tightened on the phone. That's not a place you go by accident. They sell restricted chemicals, Al continued. Lab grade. Controlled access. Exactly what he needed. Exactly what I feared. Stay on him. I'm not losing him. Minutes felt like hours. Then the update came. He's out, carrying a package. Of course he was. Now he's heading east. Lakewood area. Another pause. He just pulled into an apartment complex. I didn't need to guess. Patricia, I said quietly. Apartment 2B. Al confirmed. Everything connected, clean, undeniable. The theft, the poisoning, the partnership. This wasn't chaos. This was coordination. An hour later, another call. They just left together, heading back toward your site. Working, planning, adjusting. Like nothing had changed. Like they were still in control. But they weren't. Not anymore. Because now, we had proof. Medical evidence. Surveillance. Movement. Intent. Not just pieces. A full picture. Clear, sharp, unavoidable. I stood there, phone still in my hand, letting it settle. Because this was the moment everything shifted. No more doubt. No more questions. Just truth. Cold, undeniable truth. My son was trying to kill me. And now, I could prove it. That night, the house felt different. Not louder. Not quieter. Just waiting. Every shadow, every corner, every familiar object. Now part of something staged. Something deliberate. The wires were hidden. The cameras placed. Detective Palmer positioned just out of sight. Everything ready. All that was missing was him. I made the call with a shaking voice, not entirely fake. Benjamin, I need you to come over. Right now. A pause. I'm not feeling well. Concern came instantly. Practiced. Smooth. I'm on my way, Dad. 15 minutes. That's all it took. For everything to come to an end. He stepped through the door. Fast. Controlled. Eyes scanning. Dad, you look terrible. I sat in my chair, leaning forward, breathing unevenly. No hospitals. I muttered. Just sit down. He hesitated, then moved closer. Close enough. Exactly where I needed him. I've been thinking, I said slowly. About the company, about the will. That got his attention, instantly. What about it? I want to make some changes. A pause. Leave part of it to Lisa and the baby. Everything shifted. Not gradually. All at once. The concern vanished. Replaced by something colder. What the hell are you talking about? There it was. The real voice. She's carrying your child. I said quietly. My grandchild. His jaw tightened. That baby might not even be mine. The words hit harder than I expected. But I didn't react. Not yet. You can't give away what I've worked for, he continued, pacing now. To someone who walked out. I leaned back, steady, watching him unravel. She didn't walk out. He stopped, turned slowly, and in that moment, the mask cracked. Does it really matter? He said, his voice lower now. Sharper. You're not going to be around long enough to change anything anyway. Silence. Heavy. Suffocating. What's that supposed to mean? I already knew, but I needed him to say it. Needed it on record. He took a step closer. Look at yourself. You're getting weaker every day. Old men don't last forever. Another step. Closer. Sometimes, they just don't wake up. There it was. Clear. Undeniable. No more hiding. No more pretending. You've been poisoning me, I said quietly. Not a question. A statement. He didn't deny it. Didn't even hesitate. A faint, almost amused smile crossed his face. You figured it out. The room seemed to freeze. Time slowing, stretching. Too late, he added. That was it. The final piece. I stood up, slowly, steadier than he expected. And for the first time, I saw it. The flicker of doubt in his eyes. Not late enough, I said. And then, the door behind him opened. Fast, precise. Benjamin Hayes, you're under arrest. The words cut through the air like a blade. He turned, shock hitting him all at once. What the hell is this? Officers moved in, controlled, efficient. Hands on his arms, cuffs ready. "This is insane," he shouted, struggling now. "He's sick. He's confused." But it was over. The performance, the control, all of it, gone. As they pulled him toward the door, he looked back at me. Not like a son, not like family, but like someone who had just lost everything and finally understood why. The house fell silent again, just like before. But this time, it wasn't waiting. It was finished. And for the first time in months, I could breathe. The courtroom was quiet, not peaceful, heavy, the kind of silence that comes before a life is measured and judged. They laid everything out, piece by piece. The money, the accounts, the poison, the recordings. No gaps, no excuses. Just truth. Cold, undeniable truth. Benjamin sat there, expression tight, distant, like he still believed this was all a misunderstanding. Patricia, beside him, calm, in a different way. Not innocent. Calculated, the kind of calm that comes from knowing exactly what you did, and still choosing not to regret it. The verdict didn't take long. It never does, when the evidence speaks louder than words. Guilty. The word echoed. Final. Absolute. 15 years, for him. 20, for her. And still, no remorse. No apology. Just silence. The kind that confirms everything. 2 weeks later, life gave me something different. Something pure. I stood in that hospital room, holding my grandson for the first time. Small, warm, breathing softly against my chest. Leo. A new beginning. A life untouched by the lies, the greed, the damage. Lisa watched quietly, tired, but stronger than before. Not broken. Never broken. "What will you tell him, one day?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "The truth." A pause. "That some people choose wrong, but some people choose to protect." I nodded. Slowly, because that was all that mattered now. Protection, not just of money, but of legacy. I made the changes. The will, the trust, everything secured, untouchable, so that no one could ever take from him what almost happened to me. These days, life is quieter, slower, not the empire I once built, but something more honest, more real. Sometimes I sit on the porch watching the sun fade, thinking about where it all went wrong, how blood can turn into something unrecognizable. But then, I hear Leo's laughter, and it reminds me, legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you choose to protect, even when it costs you everything. So if there's one thing I've learned, it's this: trust isn't inherited. It's proven, and the people who deserve your loyalty are the ones who stand beside you, not the ones who wait for you to fall. If this story meant something to you, if it made you think, even for a moment, about trust, about family, about what truly matters, then stay with us. Because some stories don't just end, they teach you how to see the next one before it's too late.